Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Mayor Jim Strickland. Thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
Along with Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. We'll talk a lot tonight about crime. Crime obviously is huge on people's mind. It's a national increase. It's a very disturbing local increase. We may touch a bit on the young Dolph shooting, the rapper who was shot Wednesday. I should note that we're taping this on Thursday morning, so there could be other things that develop in that, because obviously it's a fast-moving story. Let me start big picture. I mean, we had Amy Wyrick, Shelby County District Attorney, on, I think last week, talking about some of these issues. There's a 3-year increase in violent crime. It's up 30% since 2018. Murders are up 80% since 2018. Aggravated assaults up 50%. There are some categories of crime that are down, which I think sometimes surprises people. But you ran on, you're now in your second term, you're 6 years in, give or take. Ran on fighting crime and addressing the crime problem. Going back, let's go back with a hypothetical here, to the beginning of your term. If you'd known a couple of key things, if you'd known that increasing the size of the police force would be so difficult, it's really basically been static, and it's been static nationally, right? It's been a huge national problem of hiring police force, losing police members. If you'd known the legislature was going to increase access to guns so dramatically. Now, those are legal ways, but every law enforcement person who's come on the show over the last 5 years has said those legal guns are ending up in the hands of criminals through theft and so on, and it's created a huge amount of gun crime. And if you'd known the impossible, which that this kind of societal pandemic and the upheaval of the last 2 years would happen, looking back at the crime strategies you all have implemented, what would you do differently?
Well, first, let me reframe it a little bit.
Sure.
Not only crime was reduced in 2017 to 2018, 2018 to 2019. And we were hiring more police officers and crime was going down. Then the pandemic hit. You kind of framed it around 2018. I'm going to move up to 2019. Pre-pandemic, we were heading the right direction. And I think everything that we've done has been correct. If I did anything differently, I wish we had started violence interruption earlier.
What is violence interruption when you say that?
That is a program that other cities have used where it's high-touch intervention with the young people who are in gangs or thinking about getting in gangs or in some kind of groups. Now that's the new theory, groups. They aren't official gangs. And intervene with them, high-touch meaning often. Several times a week. It's people trained, non-police, trained to do that kind of intervention to pull them outside the life of crime.
Private sector, or are those city or county employees?
They are nonprofit. Those are nonprofit. So
working with
employees.
Nonprofits.
Yeah, we've had it for a while, but they only had 13 employees.
Yeah.
We used some of the federal money that we got and to bump that up. And July 1 we started and gave them more money. They've hired up to 25 now, and they're going up to 50 here before Christmas. And I would have liked to started that earlier. Pre-pandemic, Oakland, California reduced gun violence by 50% through this program, or one of the things.
Through that program, okay. But again, looking forward, and you've still, COVID time warp, you've got a year and a half left in your term down?
2 years and 1 month.
2 years and 1 month left. Sorry about that. I'm not trying to get you out sooner. I just don't have good time anymore. It seems unlikely, though, that the level of police force has kind of chugged along at around 2,000. Again, I mean, that's a national phenomenon. And what happens next with getting the crime rate back down? Is it just getting back to the things you were doing before, or is there a new world with post-pandemic and the rise in juvenile crime? And because it is, I assume you feel it. I hear it all the time. It is a catastrophe.
I do live in the city,
Yeah,
so
right,
I
yeah.
do feel it.
Right.
And I've been concerned about this and working on it for almost 6 years, and even before that on city council. So this is not new to me. Let me talk about police and then the big challenge we have. Police, we'd gotten down to almost 1,900 police officers early in my term. We had increased that in 2019 to 2,100, a net increase of almost 200 officers going into the pandemic. Since the pandemic, we've had a net decrease of about 100, or maybe even more than 100. The pandemic has really devastated our recruiting and retention efforts. We've had more retire and more resign over the last year and a half.
Was
I
that
don't.
also the George Floyd
Yes.
protest? People say that. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's you see that.
I think that's obviously negatively affected. People don't want to be police officers now. So we're down under 2,000 officers now, and we've wanted to get to 2,500. So pre-pandemic, we were at 2,100, in the right direction. Pandemic, other things have happened. The big challenge, though, that we have is state law is weak. State law allows easy and widespread access to guns, while it does not punish the wrongful use of those guns.
But is there any reason to believe that will change?
The second part, maybe. I mean, no, we're not going to be able to pull back the lack of gun regulations. But for instance, when they allowed guns in cars,
Yeah.
theft from guns skyrocketed. This year alone, we've had about 1,500 guns stolen out of vehicles. People are not stealing guns to go hunting.
No,
They're
right.
stealing guns to then commit more crimes. People must lock up their guns. Let's go to the second issue. State law. This is some examples of state law. I shoot a gun at you. Don't hit you. No mandatory jail time on me because of weak state laws. Somebody charged with first-degree murder got out on bond. They should never be allowed to get out on bond. Somebody convicted for 8 years, they get out in 2 years. The third year, they commit a murder. And I'm going to write about that in this week's weekly update. State law is weak, and young people are laughing at the situation. 201 Poplar is a revolving door. Juvenile court is even more of a revolving door. And juvenile court needs more money to do more intervention with these young people instead of just revolving door.
Let me get Bill in here.
Mayor, let's talk about some immediate stuff as we record this the day after the shooting and killing of young Dolph. Some folks have called for a curfew of some kind. Should there be a curfew?
Well, at this point, no, but you always keep that option. It was a horribly tragic event what happened to young Dolph, but it was a targeted killing. And with targeted killings, what we try to do is to avoid the retaliation. And that's a limited number of people. That's not a citywide emergency situation where you'd have to do a curfew. So what we do is the police, the gang unit, the interveners that I talked about earlier, try to intervene to try to stop a retaliation. There's a limited number of people, limited number of places. We did have an increased police presence in those targeted areas that we thought were needed last night, and that will continue. Now, we always have the option, but we just didn't think, and overnight, really, nothing happened associated with that case.
Mm-hmm.
And let me also clarify again to people that we are recording this Thursday morning. The shooting was Wednesday, just so you don't, because again, this will air on Friday. Go ahead, Bill.
Did your counselors with the group violence intervention effort that we've been talking about, did they have an opportunity to go out after this shooting and do some work?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I talked to the lead, and they were on site, and then they were elsewhere, trying to tamp down any retaliation. But so were our police officers.
There were two other attempts on this young man's life in different cities. Are the areas that you're looking at to watch and try to avoid any retaliation? Are these people who are suspects in this shooting, or do you know at this point?
I don't know. I don't know all the places where we have increased police presence, but it's there's two groups, as I understand it, who have a beef with each other, and there are many members associated with those groups, and all are being talked to as much as they'll allow to be talked to, and there are certain areas that could be hot spots that have increased police presence.
Let's talk about hotspots, I guess, and another element of crime that I hear about constantly from people and see it some, which is the state of the highways and the streets in terms of drag racing, reckless driving. And one of the things I accidentally, joked with DA Wyrick last week, but I meant it actually, which was that I was driving out here to the studio out east on the highway, and I thought to myself, well, if I drive 75, I might get a ticket. If I go up to 100, I'm not going to get a ticket. Because right now, the police force has said, for by and large, they're not going to chase down people doing 100. And as I was driving out last week, multiple people passed me going clearly 90 to 100 miles an hour. Just based on what I could see. That there's a moral hazard in there, right? That people know they're not going to get pulled over. And so it seems to be a vicious cycle of more people speeding, more people doing dangerous things. The word is out that they're not going to get chased. And that's even separate and above the shootings that are going on the highway. So how do we get control of the highways again?
Well, we have good news recently, just in the last couple of weeks. I think Bill actually was the first one to write this story. We've been asking for years that the state take ownership of the state property, which are the interstates. Those aren't city streets, but through tradition, the city has been leaned on to patrol them, respond to accidents and all that. We had no permanent presence of highway patrol officers.
And haven't for decades.
For decades. So we're getting that now. There's 12, not long ago it was about 6 highway patrol officers. It's up to 12, it's going to be 16 this summer, and more beyond that. And what you'll see is the highway patrol officers there instead of us, and then we can have more patrol of streets.
I've heard Chief Davis, now 103 months, the new police chief, speak about the need for more technology and IDing cameras, cameras that on the highways, and I guess maybe potentially on the streets, that ID the license plates and you try to track the people down later versus chasing them down the highway.
Well, yeah, let's talk about why we don't chase.
Please. Absolutely.
Because I do get some questions about that. We don't do high-speed chases, and other police departments too, like Bartlett, I know for sure doesn't do it, unless it's a dangerous felon, and that's a different story. But if it's just someone speeding, you chase them, there's some chance that they're going to lose control and hurt somebody and kill somebody.
And the police officer could lose control and hurt somebody, and that's been a problem.
But the more likely thing is the untrained driver, often young people, will lose control and hit somebody and kill them, and that's where it's not worth it. But until last spring, cameras on the interstate to do the license plate readers was illegal. We got a law change to allow that because it's state-owned property. Now that's allowed. We're pricing it out.
Okay, and those will be city-run or in partnership with the state?
We haven't decided.
Okay, switch to the city streets. Will there be? What do you do? It's the same rules for people speeding down Poplar or speeding down Union or speeding down Airways.
It's cost.
Of the cameras to ID them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have thousands of cameras out right now.
The SkyCop cameras.
The SkyCop cameras.
But they don't ID license plates. They're just kind of low-res, surveillance cameras.
All police vehicles have license plate readers, and what you're talking about is putting license plate readers elsewhere, like a permanent. It's just a cost. So we'll see how much it costs.
Is there anything else before I go back to Bill? Again, city streets that can be done to regain control of the streets?
We've probably put 1,000 or more speed humps down Riverside Drive, other places, not just downtown, other places to try to slow people down.
Are they working?
Yeah, in the places where they have it.
Yeah. Okay, Bill.
Several city council members have talked about going back to the residency issue on police and where they live. Is there going to be a push for that before the council, I should say?
We'll see. I hope so. It may be a first start with a private behind the scenes push before it's public, but it ought to be. I mean, remember, like I said, 2018, 2019, we were low on crime. 2020, we said, let's remove, widen the residency rule. They said no. And then we've seen what's happened to crime. Now, I'm not saying it's a direct correlation, but I think I said to you or someone, the council's vote not to allow the public to vote on widening residency has not aged well. I mean, we see what happened to crime. We see what's happened to our police ranks, which have shrunk since then. We need help. We need to be able to hire. Most every major city in the country is allowed to hire officers outside the county, and we need the help. We should be able to do it.
If the council reverses course on it, and the votes were there on the council to not only rescind the referendum but also to override your veto of this, it's going to take some time. Is it enough to say let's increase the number of police, given how long it's going to take? Do you need a plan B to that?
Oh, we're already executing on that. Mm-hmm. That's why we have a $15,000 signing bonus for all new police officers, $10,000 moving expense if somebody comes from in and out of town, $15,000 home purchase assistance if they buy a house in Memphis. That's more money than any city in the world. We're aggressively going out there, different cities. We did a 9% bonus for police officers and firefighters. We're now, I think we're in the first year, and then 2 more years of 9%. We've raised their salary. We will continue to do all we can to make it a good place to work to recruit those officers.
But we're holding steady. I mean, this seems to be a larger problem than
there's no doubt. It's kind of what Eric and I were talking about. Yeah. Fewer people are applying to be police officers. Almost every police department across the country is struggling to hire and to retain. So many current officers are deciding they want a different way to make a living. And then the general, it's hard for the FedExes and the AutoZones to hire. Everyone is having a hard time hiring people. City government, non-police and fire, we're having.
Online local newspapers
online
struggling to hire. I mean, really.
Yeah, and I never worried about firefighters and recruiting and retaining firefighters. In the last 6 months, seeing the numbers, it's the first time I've really started to worry about that.
The interesting thing to me about the discussion the council had is that you have council members who believe that police officers should live in the city that they work in or live in the county where they work in. But they've also said, yes, I think we need more police officers. I mean, you had a majority on the council who agreed with the goal of going up to 2,500. So is this not necessarily about the number of police, but is it about a larger issue of police officers should live where they work?
Well, that's what they say. But that's an example of the challenge we face with crime overall. Because when a crime happens, the camera always comes to me. Strickland, what are you going to do about crime? And I'm not saying it shouldn't. I totally welcome that. But y'all never go to the council immediately after a crime and say, do you regret limiting our police force? And that's what it was. It was limiting our police force. No one ever goes to state lawmakers and state government, do you regret these weak state laws? Y'all never go to county government and say, y'all are 100% responsible for juvenile justice, 100%. And I'm not saying y'all, I don't mean Daily Memphis. Okay, I mean general and media.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm not trying to point you out.
That is fair.
But no one goes to the county government, which is 100% responsible for juvenile justice, 100%. Juvenile crime has skyrocketed over the last 6-7 years. It actually dovetails to when the consent decree was placed. And I'm not disagreeing with the thought of the consent decree. But if you're not going to take more into custody, you're going to push people away from court, juvenile court needs more money to intervene with these young people who are doing bad things and no longer coming into court, but no one asks them. No one. It's always, Strickland, what are you going to do about juvenile court? And please continue to push us, me personally. I take responsibility for it, but I don't have 100% authority on all these different areas. And that's why it's easy for a council member to say, take those positions. We need more police officers, but let's not go outside the county, because nobody pushes them.
Yeah, I mean, I got defensive, and I don't. It is an interesting conversation. Over time, I'm behind the headlines, and we've had, we had Floyd Bonner on recently, the sheriff. We've had the juvenile court Judge Michaels on in the past. We haven't been able to get him on again. Amy Wyrick last week, the DA. We've talked to council members and county commissioners about this, and next week we're talking to local state legislators, and among many things, including the gun laws. And it is very it is complicated, and it is something to some degree you begin to get the scale of the sort of diaspora of entities that have their fingers in this without. I mean, if you listen to all those conversations, you realize all the complexities of this.
First of all, I need a dictionary to look at that word you just
diaspora?
said.
Yeah. I'm not even sure I used it right, but it sounded really important.
But Judge Michael, I'm glad y'all talked to him, but he needs more resources. It's the county commission that needs to give him more funding. If you're pushing kids out of the system, where are you pushing them to?
But so let's talk
they're
more.
getting no interaction.
We've talked a ton. We've mentioned a little bit about intervention, about efforts other than policing and locking up, right? So let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, what in the short term? I think everyone vaguely, generally agrees. Good families, good education, interventions at young. Those are lifetime choices and long-term choices and interventions that hopefully keep kids on a better path. I mean, people are like, what are we going to do next week? Right. And what are the non-policing, non-lock-em-up strategies that the city, that you're part of this diaspora, can tackle that work?
The thing I'm most excited about is Boys and Girls Club. When I took office in 2016, and even the campaign, I talked about kids need something productive to do when they're not in school. I said it all the time. We did more in our community centers, more in our libraries, more in our summer jobs program, more in our parks. We did. Boys and Girls Club was the next step. I could never come up with extra money because it cost millions using the federal stimulus money. What we're doing, Craigmont High School was the only school that Boys and Girls Club was in. After school programming, the kids don't have to go to a club, don't have to go to community center, just stay at school. They close at 8, and they've done it for about 4 years. Y'all should have the principal Craigmont on. She will tell you that 100% of the kids in the Boys and Girls Club program, 100% graduate high school, and 100% of those go on to college, get a job, or join the military. We have 30 public high schools in Memphis. A program that partnership with Doris Ray and the City Council, we're going to expand that with 10 new schools. And that's what we need. We need every middle school and every high school to have after-school program, intense. It doesn't have to be Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, I was going to ask, are there other...
Intense after-school programming till 8 o'clock at night or so in the school. The kids don't have to leave. And wouldn't it be great if 100% of kids graduated high school and then went on to a successful, then all these other problems disappear.
Is it a realistic goal? 100% is a lofty goal.
Yeah. And I can't guarantee you it's going to continue that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot better than what's going on now.
Just 2 minutes left. Bill.
Let me ask you a technical question about ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funding. That there is kind of a conversion of those funds because the resolutions that the council passed on this say that the money goes to replace lost revenues from the city, and then we see the ARPA budget that has the program. So there's a bit of a conversion in that federal money from what it's intended for and what it's used for. I think I phrased that wrong.
But it's allowed to replace lost revenue for cities.
Right.
And it's allowed to make these big life-changing programs like Boys and Girls Club. So we've used it for both. City government was not exempt from lost revenue like businesses were. And we lost revenue, and this allowed us to be whole, basically. We didn't have to lay off. We didn't have to cut. And the federal money helped a lot. But we're also able to do the Boys and Girls Club, the broadband internet, which is really important, and these other big programs.
Because the lost revenue was going to go to programs and personnel for those programs.
For personnel, for sure.
Yeah.
But just, it basically, to me, the lost revenue helped us just to maintain the status quo. And then this other money let us do something more than that status quo.
Just a minute left. I mean, you ran the first time on, I think, was Brilliant at the Basics, and being brilliant at the basics. And I think if it was not the formal tagline, momentum was, Memphis has momentum. Do you feel like you're brilliant at the basics when it comes to things like roads, solid waste? We talked about litter when you were reelected, that was a priority. Do you feel like that you are being brilliant at the basics?
With as much money as we have, yes. If we were to pick up all the litter that's out there that you and I and other people throw outside, and I don't mean you and I literally.
God, you're just blaming me for everything today. It's unbelievable.
But we human beings are the ones who put it out there. City government is not littering.
Yeah.
It's human beings put it out there. But if we were to come behind all the human beings and pick up their litter and cut private property grass once a month, it would cost 15 more. We'd have to raise taxes.
$15 million.
$15 million, and I put it out in one of my weekly emails. So we have gotten better on picking up garbage. Paving streets, it's lack of workforce.
Okay. We're going to get you back sooner. Thank you so much. I lost the light bulb. We were so excited today. Thank you for joining us. You can get everything at WKNO.org or on YouTube, or download the podcast of the show wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.